Let's move to our special focus as well tonight on something else, which is meant to be a bipartisan parliamentary committee. The Joint Parliamentary Committee looking into the 2G scandal is fast becoming a political battlefield. Worryingly, the target now seems to be the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, a constitutional authority, with a charge made by Congress MPs that he was acting to favour corporate interests in coming to a presumptive loss of 1.76 lakh crores in his report on the 2G scandal.
As the Joint Parliamentary Committee questioned the Comptroller and Auditor General of India on Monday for 3 hours, there was a bitter exchange of words between Congress member Manish Tiwari and the CAG Vinod Rai. Manish Tiwari questioned the CAG's presumptive loss figure, saying that 1,76,000 crores can be as bad as 4,19,000 crore rupees. He asked why the auditors had left out the dilution of equity by a certain company, due to which a higher benchmark was not considered. Tiwari continued in this harsh tone, saying he did not want to insinuate anything, but one can land into the interpretation that sections within CAG were batting for corporate interests. Gurudas Dasgupta asked Rai to answer whether he agreed with Tiwari that the CAG was indeed favouring some corporates. The chairman interrupted, saying that the CAG could not possibly agree. It was a member's view. But Dasgupta pressed on, saying that the statement does cast aspersion on the credibility of the organisation, hence Rai must answer. At one point, Manish Tiwari pointed out the discrepancies between loss figures and asked Rai, "Can you point out a single figure on which there was unanimity?" To which Rai said, "Must I seek unanimity? Is it necessary to arrive at a consensus? That is not the way we function."
Well, that is Tanima Biswas reporting exclusively from what happened inside that meeting. And CAG in the dock, it's something which has made many uncomfortable. And joining me for more on that, two of the main players in this, Manish Tiwari, of Congress MP and also member of the JPC, leading that charge against CAG. I'm also joined by Gurudas Dasgupta of the CPI, again member of the JPC, who had a very different view on CAG and that attack today. I'm also joined in studio by Mr. V.N. Kaul, a former Comptroller and Auditor General of India, took over in 2002, and Siddharthnath Singh of the BJP. Manish Tiwari, over to you first. The worry of this attack on a constitutional authority, while the Congress may be making a political point or you may be making a valid point, is it fair? Does it undermine a constitutional authority when you accuse him of acting on the basis of corporate interests?
Well, Sonia, I am not in a position to divulge as to what took place or what transpired in the Joint Parliamentary Committee. The Joint Parliamentary Committee is at this point in time recording testimony of different persona who we feel are germane to arriving at certain tangible conclusions or arriving at the truth. All that I can say is that, yes, over the last 2 days, we have examined the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. The report has been discussed threadbare. There were doubts, there were apprehensions, there were clarifications which were required. Those clarifications have been sought. And after the entire process is over, the committee will sit together, deliberate, and then arrive at certain conclusions. So therefore, to extrapolate from the testimony or to extrapolate from the cross-examination or the examination of the CAG, I think would be a tad unfair at this point of time.
No, but Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Chako already in a press conference today said that charge was actually made, so it's not really a secret anymore. And you've made that charge in other panels as well besides the JPC. So you did actually make that charge. So just to ask you on that specific basis, of course, the final report of JPC is not out. So why make that charge against a constitutional authority?
Sonia, now, Sonia, that since you have brought it up, allow me to clarify. It was not a charge. It was not, meant to be an insinuation or an allegation, as your colleague was apparently quoting from certain proceedings. I do not know as to how they became privy to that. But be that as it may, the short point that we were driving at is that when you decide that the infusion of equity into particular companies should become a benchmark for tabulating loss, is it not fair that when a particular company which had received, let us say, a higher valuation of equity, is excluded because it does raise, certain very tangible and I can say reasonable and legitimate apprehensions as to why a certain thing has happened. So therefore, it was in that context, those questions which your colleague alluded to, were raised in the Joint Parliamentary
Let me just bring in a former Comptroller and Auditor General, Mr. V.N. Kaul, about I think let's take it beyond just the aspects and the figures and the legal aspect, which Manish, of course, a very good lawyer, has brought up, but the larger principle of it, that when you find a constitutional authority in the dock, is it something that troubles you?
Well, it does trouble me, but what happens in JPC stays in the JPC. I'd like to wait till the report of the JPC comes before I make any comments on the subject. After all, JPC has the freedom. You see, the JPC and the PAC are the two committees that have a legitimate right to look into the reports of the CAG.
Right.
And its meticulous rigor should not be run down. I don't think so. Let them discuss freely and fairly inside the committee. But what comes out in the report is what I would be looking forward to, not for internal or interim discussions and taking a call on that.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone, fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.